Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a three-game college basketball slate. Uh, Sorry about the first video. For some reason, the audio collapsed out of it, so I'm going to have to re-record it. With that said, guys, thank you for bearing with me with the power out and stuff like that the last couple of days. So we'll be back at it tomorrow, full square. But today we have the three-game slate for college basketball that starts at 4:30. These three games feature three different type of games. Two of them they're all tight scoring games, but one game is 144 points and the other two are under 130, and so that's definitely gonna play into this slate. However, I don't think the Michigan Indiana game necessarily have a lot of great plays, but they do have some decent plays, so we will get into those. At the end of the video, I will break down the three games. With that said, I have a few guys to talk about here. First, we're going to talk about Chase Aldridge for Northwestern. He is a pretty safe play here. He's not had any game hardly under 20 fantasy points all season long. He has hit around 20 fantasy points a lot, but he does have some good upside, and he's actually pretty priced well for this matchup. Obviously, it is a tight game, and it is a lower scoring game, but it is still good. He's been really good against Rutgers, too, where he scored 30, 32, 25, and 30 fantasy points in his career here and against them, so I look for him to have another game like that and be a really good play on the slate. Then we're going to look at Cam Spencer for Rutgers. He has 3 games all year where he splashed very low floor. The last few games, the last game against Northwestern, he had 36 fantasy points. In the last 5 games, he's been at least 25 points or better as well, so he has really nice upside and a pretty safe floor here. I think he's a pretty good play on the slate for Rutgers. Excuse me. Then we're going to look at Trace Jackson Davis. He seems like he's going to be somewhat difficult to roster today due to there not being a ton of value plays, but he is viable on the slate as he's had the last 2 games against Michigan over 40 fantasy points, and he's been over 45 fantasy points in 12 of the last 14 total games, including a bunch of games over 50 fantasy points. So he has some very nice upside here. I do think he's a great option on the slate, and he is a guy that I would definitely utilize if I can figure out how to roster him. Then we're going to look at Clifford Amori for Rutgers. He is priced pretty fair here. He has some really good upside. He has one sub 20 fantasy point game all season long. He's been at over 30 fantasy points in 3 straight games in 5 of the last 6, and I look for him to have some good upside here in this matchup against Northwestern. And then for a value play, we have Terrence Williams for Michigan. He's not somebody that's going to smash 30 fantasy points, but he has decent upside in a high scoring game, and he's been all right for most of the season. He is coming off the bench right now because he came back from an injury about 4 or 5 games ago. But he does look like he's in a pretty good spot, and while he does have a low floor, his ceiling is about what we want it to be, and he's pretty safe from that perspective. So let's go ahead and get into the breakdown of each individual team. We're going to start with Michigan here. Now, Michigan plays 4 guys, big minutes. Dickinson and Buffkin are the best plays. Dickinson has done all right versus Indiana in his career as well, and he has some nice upside. He is a little bit more risky than Jackson Davis, though, but you can make a good argument for Terrence Williams as well, since he does have a decent role coming off the bench right now. He should be able to get you 15 to 20 fantasy points in this one. As for Indiana, I do think that they have 4 guys that play big minutes, 2 of which have been terrible fantasy points wise. But Jackson Davis has massive potential. As for the rest of the starters, it's hard to love any of them as they are way overpriced. Probably due to the matchup, but no one else really stands out as a good play here for them. But you could utilize a couple of their starters just from a sheer minutes perspective. Then for let's see here, Wisconsin. Wisconsin plays all their starters 30 plus minutes. Crowell and Wall are both the safest options. The other 3 have very streaky upside and are wildly inconsistent. But like I said, they do have some upside, so they are interesting. Then for Minnesota, this team plays a very deep bench, and they have a few interesting options, with Jamison Battle being the best option on the team. They're still pretty risky to use here, being that they are the lowest scoring team on the slate. Braden Carrington is a high-risk, low-cost value play, but he is definitely a Hail Mary type of play. Like, he's very risky. He could score 5 fantasy points. He could score 20. So he is kind of risky, but he is viable on the slate, especially if you're going to try to fit Trace Jackson Davis in. And then for Northwestern, I really do kind of like this game, but I do feel like I'm a broken record with this team as they tend to be a little bit overpriced. The really interesting plays here are Boo Booey and then also Chase Aldridge. Both of them play really good minutes. Pretty much everybody else plays very streaky minutes. They have a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to total minutes for a lot of the guys, and they play a very deep bench. And so I expect those two guys to be really good, and pretty much everybody else is kind of risky. Oddage has also been extremely good against Rutgers with 425 fantasy point games in the last 4 games against them in his career. So I look for both those guys to be interesting here. And then for Rutgers, last but not least, they play a 7-man rotation, and they are a bit pricey as a team. But Amari and Spencer, looks very interesting. McConnell should also be somewhat interesting here today, but he does have a very low floor. And then Simpson holds some Hail Mary value, similar to Brandon Carrington from Minnesota. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.